Andres de Doble A Sports, welcome back to the channel and this special Mexico national team video following the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup tournament that Mexico won, beating the United States in the final 2-1. I even went to the semifinal game between Mexico and Honduras, and it was an incredible experience. And now, with Mexico, the champions of the tournament, I will be grading their performance across all of their 6 games. With that, the Mexico national team won the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup tournament. Here are the team's grades for their performance throughout all 6 of their games. Goalkeepers, A-. Luis Angel Malagon was the starting goalkeeper for all 6 games. He honestly wasn't challenged a whole lot in this tournament, mainly because the defense, which we will talk about next, played well. He did concede 2 goals against the Dominican Republic. The first one you could say was not ideal, as just about everyone was caught sleeping on that play. As for the second goal conceded in that game, that was mostly on Jorge Sanchez getting burned and defending terribly. Malagon didn't concede another goal until the final versus the United States on the set play in the first 5 minutes of the game. Again, it wasn't really his fault, as it was a lucky header that Chris Richards bar downed. He also made a couple saves in that game, the first one with his head and the second in the last minutes of the game, which were 2 good moments for him. I will say he did look a bit indecisive when it came to whether he should come out from the net for an intervention or not. Not ideal, and something he will likely look to improve on this upcoming season with Club America. But outside of that, Malagon went through the rest of the motions well without any mistakes. So I do think the A- grade is a correct and fair grade. I do think that Guillermo Ochoa should also be included in this grade for the goalkeepers. While he didn't play in any games and was the backup goalkeeper to Malagon, his leadership from the sidelines, in the locker room, and during practice sessions throughout the tournament is worth noting. And the players on the team said similar things, and we even saw his good leadership on the sidelines in that final game versus the United States. After the U.S. scored on that free kick play in the first 5 minutes, Ochoa noticed that the players on the field were stunned and looked very nervous after conceding that early goal. Ochoa got up from the bench, and you could see him tell the players on the field, relax, settle into the game. There's still a lot of time and football to be played. That was really good advice from Ochoa that resonated well with the team, and especially players like Ruiz and Moya, who, remember, were playing in a final for Mexico for the first time. So while Malagon did well as the goalkeeper in the starting 11, Ochoa showed good mentorship, demonstrating his leadership and experience from the sidelines. With that, A- grade for the goalkeepers. Center backs, A-. Johan Vazquez and Cesar Montes were the starting center backs for almost every game. Vazquez did miss the first game against the Dominican Republic, as he was still not 100% recovered from an ankle injury, but he was able to play all the other 5 games. Meanwhile, Montes played in all the games except the game versus Saudi Arabia, and outside of the one play on the first goal conceded against the Dominican Republic, they had a very good tournament. Together, Montes and Vazquez combined for around 14 tackles won throughout the tournament, and they they contributed the most clearances and shots blocked as well. Along with playing well defensively, both also contributed offensively in this tournament. Johan Vazquez was credited with the assist, that initial header on Edson Alvarez's game-winning goal in the final. And Cesar Montes finished the tournament tied with Raul as the top goal scorer of the tournament for Mexico. He scored that strange goal that deflected off the back of his head against the Dominican Republic, and he scored both goals in Mexico's 2-0 win versus Suriname. Johan continues to be the best center back for Mexico, and Montes had his best run of performances for the national team in this Gold Cup. As for Chiquete Orozco, he also only played in 3 games, entering as a substitute. He did well going through the motions to help close games out for Mexico, despite slightly struggling versus Honduras, mainly because he had to play outside of his normal position in that game. But overall, the center backs were excellent in this tournament, especially Johan and Montes. Fullbacks, B. Jorge Sanchez was the starting right back for most of the tournament, starting in 3 games, including in the final against the States. And I'll be honest, he was not good enough or deserving of the 3 starting opportunities he was given. Outside of his 2 tackles won in the final, he was awful on both sides of the ball, and it was really, really hard to watch as a fan. In the final, after winning one of his 2 notable tackles, he ended up unintentionally touching the ball with his hand as he tried to save himself from falling and face planting. While it was not a penalty as he was just trying to save himself from falling, it was still a horrible look for him there. And that was just the start of the bad from Jorge Sanchez. In the first game versus the Dominican Republic, he got absolutely sauced versus Ascona on the Dominicans' second goal. He was horrible defensively, and it put more burden on the center backs. Offensively, he was even worse. He was a turnover machine with the ball, and it got so bad to where in that game versus Costa Rica, players no longer trusted him offensively and refused to give him the ball for the rest of the tournament. With his own teammates no longer trusting him with the ball, Sanchez cannot be called up going forward, and Araujo's performance proved that even more so. Which brings up the next player in the fullbacks grade in Julian Araujo. Julian Araujo, after surprisingly being left on the bench for the entire group stage, was not only given playing time in the quarterfinals and semifinals, but was the starting right back, which was something fans were hoping to see, and Araujo didn't disappoint. He had a great defensive performance against Saudi Arabia, and he held his own very well in a physical semifinal game against Honduras. And his ball control skills, while there is still room for improvement, are very good in terms of getting the ball out of danger and are much better than Jorge Sanchez's. Araujo should be one of the 2 right backs going forward, along with Rodrigo Huescas. Israel Reyes was the starting center back against the Dominican Republic as he filled in for Johan and was a starting right back against Suriname. Reyes is a versatile right side defender, so I am including him in with the fullbacks. Reyes only played in 3 games and entered as a substitute in the final for Jorge Sanchez. I thought he did pretty well, and for all things considered, he held his own, contributing to the good defense. While I don't think he is a starter in the long term, I do think he is a good player to have coming off the bench, adding depth to that defense. As for the left back position, Jesus Gallardo and Mateo Chavez were the 2 left backs for Mexico this tournament, with Gallardo starting in 4 of the 6 games. While I do believe Gallardo played better than Jorge Sanchez, Gallardo still played like a mid-tier fullback at best. To his credit, his defending was good and he contributed to the strong defense under Aguirre's system, with his most notable performance being against the Dominican Republic, where he had 4 tackles won. However, his ability to contribute offensively continues to be a major weakness in his game, as outside of the good pass to Marcel Ruiz in the final, he did not provide any assists and failed to create really any chances offensively. And it is this reason why I do believe Gallardo is an option coming off the bench at best now and no longer a starting player, especially when compared to Mateo Chavez. Which brings me to the last player in the fullbacks grades in Mateo Chavez, who made his national team debut versus Switzerland and played in 3 of the Gold Cup matches for Mexico, starting in 2 of them. And he had a very good performance on both sides of the ball, which was something Mexico was missing with Gallardo. In each of the 3 games he played, he had at least 2 notable tackles won. His ball skills and chance creation were also very good, showing his ability to also contribute offensively, making him a complete left back. While Mexico failed to score versus Costa Rica, Chavez was very active offensively on the left side in that game, constantly trying to create plays. And in the game versus Saudi Arabia, he provided multiple crosses into the box, including that one which resulted in that Saudi Arabia own goal. And as someone who saw him play in person versus Honduras, and he held his own very well in a very physical semifinal game versus Honduras, he had 3 good tackles won. His stats after all 3 performances were good. And again, I saw him play in person. He passed the eye test of seeing how he played in the starting 11. I can absolutely see why AZ Alkmaar in the Eredivisie signed him this summer prior to the tournament. And going forward, I think he should be the starting left back. Midfielders, A-. Charlie Rodriguez played in 3 games, each time entering as a substitute, and outside of the one-shot attempt he had versus Saudi Arabia, he was non-existent at best, and it felt like 11 versus 10 at worst. The moment where Tronco came in as a substitute versus Costa Rica and turned the ball over immediately on his first touch pretty much summarizes how he played. He is still the Tronco Rodriguez that we know and remember, and is not part of the reason why I am giving the midfielders an A- grade. I am giving the midfielders an A-tier grade primarily because of the 3 starting midfielders in the elimination rounds and their great performances. Edson Alvarez, Marcel Ruiz, and 16-year-old Gilberto Mora all had a great tournament. Starting with Edson Alvarez, he had a very good tournament as the starting defensive midfielder, helping the center backs in the defensive third and playing the role of a third center back. He also contributed offensively on set plays, scoring 2 goals this tournament, his first versus the Dominican Republic and the second being the game-winning goal in the final versus the United States. El Machin continues to lead the team by example and good performances. Moving on to one of the 2 players fans were wanting to see play in this Gold Cup, Marcel Ruiz. Despite having a great performance versus Turkey in the preparation friendly games, he surprisingly did not play in the first Gold Cup game against the Dominican Republic. However, he started in all the other games after that, and rightfully so. Ruiz did well when he was needed in helping out the defense and had many notable duels won along with takeaways with the ball throughout the tournament. He also held his own in the most physical of scenarios and duels, especially in that game versus Honduras. He was also very good offensively, his dribbling was good, and his ball passing was very accurate, as we saw in the final with his good assist to Raul for the game-tying goal. The same can be said for the wonder kid of the team, 16-year-old attacking midfielder Gilberto Mora. Fans felt disappointed after Mora did not see a single minute of playing time in the group stage, and we all thought that we would not get to see him play in the Gold Cup and make his official debut for Mexico. But to our surprise, not only did we see Mora make his debut for Mexico, he started in the quarterfinal game against Saudi Arabia, as well as the semifinal and the final, and he played well. His passing was very good, and in all 3 games, he had 1 or 2 moments where he did something brilliant to keep possession and control of the ball. He brought offensive creativity that the midfield lacked, and he provided the great assist to Raul Jimenez for the goal versus Honduras, where he was named player of the match. And at just 16 years old, he is now the youngest debutant in Mexico national team history, the youngest to record an assist, the youngest ever Mexican player of the match, and with Mexico winning their 10th Gold Cup, Gilberto Mora is now the youngest player to win an international trophy in football history. This kid is something special and has a really bright future. Eric Lira played in 3 games, starting against the Dominican Republic and Saudi Arabia, and entering the game as a substitute versus Honduras. I thought he did okay versus the Dominican Republic and had a good game as the starting defensive midfielder in the quarterfinals, while Edson played as the starting center back. He did get into some trouble and a shoving match near the end of the game versus Honduras, which was obviously not ideal. But I do think he is a good bench option to have and adds depth to the defensive end of the midfield. Orbelin Pineda played in 4 of the games for Mexico and started in the first game against the Dominican Republic. He definitely struggled to create plays as the attacking midfielder and did not play as well as Mora did along with Ruiz and Edson. As for his performances as a substitute, he didn't produce much offensively but did well going through the motions to close out the games for Mexico. While he may not be a starter going forward, especially with how well Ruiz and Mora played, along with up-and-coming players like Elias Montiel, I do think Orbelin is a good depth player that can perform well as a substitute. Overall though, it was great to see the midfield finally play well and be a positive thing for this team, and in just their handful of games, Ruiz and Mora have contributed more than Tronco Rodriguez has in his 58 games for Mexico. And that's a great thing, because we might finally be seeing the end of Tronco Rodriguez as a player on the team, as he didn't play in the semifinals or the final. Hell, Ruiz and Mora were so good that Efrain Alvarez, who was on the bench and part of the team, didn't get any playing time because they were playing so well. And again, with Ruiz and Mora now on the team and up-and-coming players like Elias Montiel, Ober Vargas, and even Efrain and Cesar Garza, the midfield in the long term looks very, very promising. Moving on to the offensive front, starting with the wingers. I am giving the wingers a B- grade. Alexis Vega and Piojo Alvarado were the starting wingers in all 6 games. And to be honest, seeing Piojo Alvarado as the starter for the entire tournament over Cesar Huerta, while Chino only played as a substitute, was criminal. Piojo Alvarado, outside of his game versus Costa Rica and maybe versus the United States, played exactly like how you would imagine a player for a Chivas team in a state of crisis would play. Extremely inconsistent and non-existent at worst. His crosses and services into the box were awful all tournament, and his finishing shots were bad as well. He had 4 shot attempts in the final versus the United States, and they all went wide. In fact, I don't think he had even 1 shot on target this entire tournament. Meanwhile, Chino Huerta, every time he entered the game as a substitute, you could see the night and day difference, the instant positive impact Huerta made. Huerta's dribbling and ball skills were better, and he was able to create on his own and make a run with the ball to create plays. It is criminal that he didn't get at least 1 starting opportunity in this tournament, despite showing better form, and he should be starting over Piojo going forward. As for Piojo, in the long term, unless he's able to do what Mateo Chavez did and somehow be a bright player amid Chivas' state of freefall, and we see a massive improvement in his form, I don't think he should be called up again. Osiel Herrera has been great for Tigres and has looked promising in his handful of Mexico games. He's a much better option than Piojo in the long term. Tecatito, after his injury and despite his age, just had a great Club World Cup with Rayados. And even Hugo Camberos, who was Liga MX Rookie of the Year, they are all better options and players right now. Regardless, Piojo was given a chance and should no longer be called up based on his form right now. As for Alexis Vega, he was better than Alvarado in this tournament, and to his credit, he did get the first goal against Saudi Arabia. However, outside of that goal, he has really struggled to find that same good form that he has had with Toluca with the national team. Look for that to be something Vega will want to improve on, should he likely be called up in September. And now, the striker position, and this is an easy A+ grade. A+ grade for the striker position. Raul was the number 1 striker for the entire tournament, and he once again showed his incredible form at both the club and international levels. He scored 3 goals in this tournament, and just like in the Nations League finals, he scored in the semifinal and the final of the Gold Cup. And after everything Raul has been through, Raul's return to form, in my opinion, is arguably one of the greatest comeback stories in football. He has become my favorite player on the team, and come 2026, yeah, I'm definitely going to try to get a Raul jersey. As for Santi and Julian Quiñones, they both also contributed in some way. Santi had the assist on Raul's goal versus the Dominican Republic and also had that chilena, which unfortunately did not count as it was controversially called offsides. As for Quiñones, he had the assist on Montes' second goal versus Suriname, but outside of that, they didn't contribute or produce offensively like many fans had hoped for. And I think there are two reasons for that. The first and obvious one is that Raul is simply playing better right now. He's in his prime. And while many people see how Quiñones and Santi both failed to score goals in this tournament and will quickly say they are fraudulent, especially in the case of Santi, I have seen many people already saying he is a tronco or fraudulent player. I strongly disagree with this take. I think the biggest reason both of them are struggling is because, in my opinion, right now, I think they are too good for the team. Because you see they can contribute. They each had an assist. They both entered the pitch every game looking motivated and energized. And for Santi Jimenez, even more so. For Santi, every time he's entered the game as a substitute, you can see the motivation, the hunger. It's there. He wants to contribute for Mexico and score. But every time he and Quiñones end up short of getting that goal they are looking for. And I think it's because the team and Aguirre's style of play, it's not built around the talented offensive front and trying to keep those players, and trying to help those players succeed, and giving them plenty of opportunities. The team right now is built from the defense up. The team prioritizes a strong defense while offensively focusing on just keeping the majority of ball possession between the midfield and center backs, being very, very patient offensively, and only creating 2 or 3 really good scoring chances, getting a goal on those few great chances, and then back to that strong, suffocating defense that Mexico has had throughout the tournament. See how that can be a problem? This style of play is successful in keeping teams from scoring, like what we saw in their 1-0 win versus Turkey, and with Mexico conceding the fewest goals in the Gold Cup. At the same time, this has also resulted in what fans see as a lack of offensive creativity and an offensive style of play that is, slower. This was especially a concern during the group stage where Mexico scored only 1 goal in the run of play. This system, starting from the defense and then up, is not one in which Santi and Julian Quiñones will succeed in. With that, this will be something that the team, along with Santi and Quiñones, will look to adjust and improve on going forward. I do agree with the decision of Raul being the current number 1 striker and the main striker in the starting 11. He is in his prime right now. Quiñones is one of the best offensive players we have, and we know Santi has the talent and is the long-term future of the team. Mexico just needs to improve its ability to create offensively with wingers who can provide good services. The goals and success from them will come. It will just take time and the correct adjustments. Which leads me into the next grades category of the coaches. Javier Aguirre, the head coach, and you can also include assistant coach Rafa Marquez, as they have been working together in terms of tactics and strategy for the team. For a coaching grade, I will give an A-. I really like Aguirre and Marquez and their tactics of having the defensive players push up with the offensive front on set plays. This was a tactic that Javier Aguirre credited Marquez for creating, and it worked out really well throughout the tournament, with Edson Alvarez scoring 2 goals and Cesar Montes scoring 3. And with Aguirre establishing a strong defense that conceded the fewest goals in the tournament, the two coaches together established a great defense that was able to contribute on both sides of the ball. As for Vasco Aguirre himself as the head coach, there were 2 things that I really liked about his coaching throughout the tournament. First, his willingness to make changes and adjust. Throughout the tournament, when Aguirre noticed a problem, he would make changes to try and address it. For example, in the first 2 games in the group stage, Aguirre tried the 4-4-2 formation with 2 strikers. When he noticed there was a lack of creativity and that this formation only scored 1 goal in the run of play, he went back to the 4-3-3 moved Orbelin to a player coming off the bench, and started Ruiz and Mora. In the right back position, Jorge Sanchez played terribly in the group stage, and he made a change and started Araujo against Saudi Arabia and Honduras. Tronco Rodriguez again played like a tronco, and he kept him on the bench in the final 2 games. It is true, he did have some adjustments and changes that did not work, like adjusting the 2-9 formation by benching Santi and starting Quiñones before going back to the 4-3-3, and starting Gallardo and Sanchez definitely threw a wrench in the final. But nevertheless, Aguirre is not afraid of and is willing to make changes when he notices a problem, and for the most part, his changes work out well. I also really like how he is making these as he is making these changes, it is also rotating the players and integrating them into the team, as almost everyone on the team got some sort of playing time in this tournament. The one thing that is lacking is the offensive creativity. In the group stage, Mexico scored only 1 goal in the run of play and had a lot of ball possession, but didn't create many scoring opportunities outside of set plays. This resulted in a style of play that looked very slow offensively. Aguirre, to his credit, made changes in the elimination rounds, and you saw the offensive front improve, and they scored 1 goal in the run of play in each of the knockout games. However, with 3 other key players in Quiñones, Santi, and attacking midfielder Efrain Alvarez, who did not receive playing time in this tournament, who struggled and have still yet to succeed and be integrated into the team, it still leaves Aguirre and this team with more improvements to be made offensively. With that, with the defense well established and in good form, look for Javier Aguirre and Rafa Marquez to now make tactical adjustments that will improve the offense front to where all the players there can find success like Raul has. And now lastly, the bonus grade category, starting with the Mexican Football Federation. I'm giving them a B+. Based on what I have seen in this Gold Cup tournament, it looks like they are finally putting results first instead of the money. Under past coaches and federation management, it felt as if roster adjustments and putting results of the team first was this crazy abstract thought. In the Copa America, they pretty much imposed half the roster onto Jaime Lozano, with guys like Memo Martinez and Tronco Rodriguez being treated as the main stars of the team when they're both mid-tier at best, and Tronco Rodriguez is awful. And when Mexico got eliminated in the group stage, the Mexican Federation followed this disappointing result up with a post on Twitter addressed to the fans that felt tone-deaf to the poor results and insulting to the fans. After fans protested the following window, it looks like the Federation finally understood the message. Since then, the Federation has scheduled friendlies against more competitive teams. They hired a good coach willing to make adjustments and gave Aguirre full control of the team and the roster. And you can tell because so far, he has not faced backlash for making changes to the roster and starting lineups like he has. He hasn't faced that backlash from the Federation. We should also appreciate how far the Federation went to make sure Gilberto Mora, at just 16 years old, would be able to play. Because he legally isn't an adult yet, usually the coach and Federation would need to get permission and have waivers signed from the parents if they want to call up anyone under the age of 18. That can take time and effort, and it shows how the Federation, who has never done this when Mexico probably could have and should have in the past, to start believing in prospects now, is beginning to do things differently now. Because in the past, with other coaches, Mora would have never been called up. It is true, there is still more work to be done. However, the changes made so far have elevated and improved the team in comparison to the last 2 years, and these changes have established a culture within the team that I don't think is bad to have, and that is just find a way to get good results. A win is a win, and that's all that matters. This again shows how we are finally seeing the Mexican Football Federation starting to focus more on the team's results. And now for the final grade category, the Mexico fan base. I am giving the fans an A. Entering this Gold Cup tournament as well as the Club World Cup, many fans did not go to the games or were very hesitant reluctant to go amid the anti-immigration raids due to the presence of federal agents who announced they would be present at the games looking for immigrants. This sparked fears that fans would be racially profiled by law enforcement at stadiums, and it resulted in Mexico fans not turning out for the games in as big of numbers like we usually see, especially in the group stage. And there was even the debate about having the opening game in Los Angeles played behind closed doors. I already made videos addressing this issue and how it can affect the football world, especially with the World Cup next year. All I will say right now is that it is very sad to see this affect this beautiful sport and the fan atmosphere that makes the sport so great as well. As for the fans who were still willing to attend the games and did attend the games, my grandfather, my father, and myself included, as we were at the semifinal game in Levi Stadium, they still created a great atmosphere in the stadium. Fans were friendly and great sports among themselves and fans of other teams. And in the semifinal and final matches, Mexico fans completely sold out both Levi Stadium and NRG Stadium, wearing their green jerseys, bringing the drums and flags, and we put US fans to shame, to absolute shame, by once again establishing an overwhelming pro-Mexico crowd in their own country. The Mexico fan attendance during this Gold Cup tournament showed that whether the games are in Mexico or in the United States in 2026 and in 2031 for the Women's World Cup, if Mexico is playing, it will be a home atmosphere, a home game for Mexico, and Mexico fans will still find some sort of way to turn out for the games. And there you have it, my performance grades for Mexico in their successful 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup campaign that saw them win the bicampeonato, 2 straight Gold Cup titles. And for a single overall grade, I will give Mexico an A. Mexico entered as the favorites to win, and they ended the tournament with their 10th Gold Cup title. Andres de AA Sports. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoy my videos covering the Mexico national team. Leave a like and subscribe to support this sports passion project channel on YouTube, and stay tuned in for my final video for the 2025 CONCACAF Gold Cup, where I will grade all 16 teams' performances in the tournament. With that, thanks for watching and listening. Viva Mexico!